The stars had never looked so bright from the observation deck of the Horizon's Promise. Ambassador Kong Yuna stood alone, her hands clasped behind her back, watching the endless darkness stretch before her. In a few hours, she would speak to beings that humanity had only dreamed of meeting. She would represent Earth. She would represent hope. Behind her, the door slid open with a soft hiss. Captain Beak Sunwoo walked in, his boots clicking against the metal floor. He had known Yuna since they were children playing in the streets of Busan. Now they stood at the edge of history together. "Should be sleeping," Sunwoo said. His voice was gentle but firm. Yuna smiled without turning around. "I tried. My mind won't stop racing." Sunwoo stood beside her and looked out at the stars. "Are you scared?" "Terrified," she admitted, "but also excited. We're about to meet them, Sunwoo. 47 species. Civilizations that have existed for thousands of years, and they want to hear what we have to say." The Galactic Consortium had watched humanity for a long time. They had seen humans crawl out of their caves, build cities, destroy each other in wars, and then reach for the stars. For most species in the consortium, humanity was a puzzle. They were violent, but also kind. They were destructive, but also creative. They were young, but learned fast. Too fast, some thought. Admiral Park Tae-ho commanded the small fleet that escorted the diplomatic vessel. He was an old soldier with gray hair and tired eyes, but his mind was still sharp. He had fought in 3 colonial wars and had never lost. But this mission was different. This was not about fighting. This was about talking. From the bridge of his flagship, the Ironclad, Tae-ho watched the Horizon's Promise glide through space. Such a small ship. Such an important mission. He prayed silently that Yuna would succeed. "Admiral," said Commander Yu Jahoon from the tactical station, "we are approaching the Velthar system. The neutral station is within range." Tae-ho nodded. "Signal the ambassador. Tell her we will hold position at the system's edge as agreed. She goes in alone from here." This was the consortium's rule. Any species seeking membership had to send their envoy to Velthar Prime with only a small escort. No warships. No armies. It was meant to show trust. Tae-ho understood the logic, but he did not like it. Yuna would be vulnerable. On the Horizon's Promise, Lieutenant Cho Nari received the message and relayed it to the ambassador. Nari was young, barely 25, with quick fingers and a quicker mind. She handled communications for the ship and had memorized every known alien language in the consortium database. Ambassador Nari said, "Admiral Tae-ho sends his wishes. We are on our own now." Yuna took a deep breath. "Good. Inform the crew. We enter Velthor space in 1 hour." Diplomatic vessel crossed into neutral territory. Velthor Prime was a massive station, larger than some moons, floating in the empty space between 3 dead stars. It was ancient. Some said it was built before any current consortium species existed. It was the one place in the galaxy where no blood had ever been spilled. Sacred ground, as the Horizon's Promise docked, Yuna gathered her team. There were only 12 of them. Captain Sunwoo led the security detail of 6 guards. Dr. Han Minji, the ship's doctor, insisted on coming to show that humans valued life. Nari would translate if needed. The rest were aides who carried gifts and documents. The airlock opened, and Yuna stepped onto Velthor Prime. The air was cool and smelled faintly of flowers she did not recognize. The corridors were wide and decorated with symbols from dozens of species. Beings of all shapes and sizes walked past her. Some had scales. Some had feathers. Some floated instead of walking. All of them stopped to stare at the humans. "They're curious," Sunwoo whispered. "Good," Yuna replied. "Curiosity is better than fear." They were led to the Grand Assembly Chamber. It was a circular room, with seats rising in tiers around a central platform. Representatives from all 47 consortium species filled those seats. At the highest tier sat the Morthiki delegation, led by High Arbiter Drelvok. The Morthiki were tall and thin, with skin like polished stone and eyes that glowed faintly orange. They were the oldest species in the consortium and considered themselves its leaders. Drelvok was ancient even by their standards. He had lived for 2,000 years and had seen many young species rise and fall. He looked down at Yuna with something like disgust. Yuna walked to the central platform. Her heart was beating fast, but her voice was steady when she spoke. "Honored members of the Galactic Consortium," she began, "I am Kong Yuna, ambassador of the United Earth Coalition. I come before you not as a conqueror, not as a beggar, but as a friend. Humanity has made many mistakes. We have hurt ourselves and our world, but we have also learned. We have grown. We stand here today because we chose hope over despair, peace over war, and the stars over the darkness." She paused and looked around the chamber. Some faces showed interest. Others showed doubt. Drelvok's face showed nothing. "We ask only for a chance," Yuna continued. "A chance to prove that humanity can be a good neighbor. A chance to trade, to learn, to share. We do not expect trust immediately. Trust is earned. But we hope you will give us the opportunity to earn it." She bowed her head respectfully and waited. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, slowly, representatives from several species began to tap their desks or stomp their feet or make other sounds of approval. The noise grew. Not all of them, but many. Perhaps half the chamber seemed willing to listen. Drelvok watched the scene with cold eyes. He had studied humans carefully. He knew their history. He knew how fast they grew. He knew that in just 300 years they had gone from wooden boats to starships. If they joined the consortium, they would not stay young and weak for long. In a few centuries, they might lead it. That could not be allowed. As Yuna smiled at the positive response, Drelvok was already planning. The vote would happen in 3 days. He had 3 days to make sure humanity would never threaten anyone again. That night, Yuna sat in her quarters and wrote a message to her mother back on Earth. "I think they will accept us," she wrote. "I can feel it. We might actually do this." She did not know that those would be among her last words to her family. She did not know that High Arbiter Drelvok had already summoned his assassins. She did not know that in less than 48 hours, her death would shake the galaxy and change everything forever. But for now, she slept peacefully, dreaming of a future where humans and aliens walked together among the stars. That dream would die with her, and from its ashes, something far more terrible would rise. 2 days passed on Velther Prime, Ambassador. Kong Yuna spent every waking hour meeting with delegates from different species. She drank strange teas, ate foods she could not name, and listened to stories about worlds she had never seen. Many species were kind to her. They asked about Earth, about human music and art, about the blue oceans and green forests. Yuna answered every question with patience and warmth. Captain Beak Sunwoo stayed close to her at all times. He did not trust this place. Something felt wrong. The Morthiki delegates avoided the humans completely. They watched from a distance, with their glowing orange eyes, whispering among themselves. Sunwoo had been a soldier long enough to recognize danger. "I don't like this," he told Yuna one evening as they walked back to their quarters. "The Morthiki?" Yuna asked. "They haven't spoken to us once. Every other species has at least said hello. But them? Nothing. Just watching." Yuna sighed. "They're old, Sunwoo. It's very old. Maybe they just need time to accept something new." Sunwoo shook his head. "Or maybe they have no intention of accepting us at all." That night, Yuna could not sleep. She stood by the window of her quarters and looked out at the stars. Tomorrow was the vote. Tomorrow would decide humanity's future. Across the station, High Arbiter Drelvok stood in a dark room with 5 Morthiki warriors. They were trained killers, bred for violence that the consortium believed the Morthiki had abandoned long ago. They were wrong. "Humans must die," Drelvok said. His voice was calm, almost bored. "All of them. Leave no survivors. Make it look like they attacked first." One of the warriors tilted his head. "The sacred ground, Arbiter. No blood has been spilled here in 12,000 years." Drelvok's eyes glowed brighter. Then we will make history. When the consortium sees what savages these humans are, they will thank us. They will understand that I protected them from a dangerous species." He handed the lead warrior a small device. "This will disable their weapons. Strike when they sleep. Record everything. We will show the galaxy that humans cannot be trusted." The warriors bowed and disappeared into the shadows. The attack came at midnight. Sunwoo woke to the sound of screaming. He grabbed his weapon and ran into the corridor. 2 of his guards were already dead, their bodies twisted on the floor. A Morth-Ki warrior stood over them, a blade dripping with blood. Sunwoo fired. His weapon clicked uselessly, dead. The device had done its work. He threw the useless gun aside and drew his combat knife. "Everyone to the ambassador," he shouted. The Morth-Ki warrior attacked. Sunwoo blocked the first strike, ducked under the second, and drove his knife into the creature's throat. It fell, gurgling. More warriors appeared. Sunwoo fought like a demon. He killed 2 more before a blade cut deep into his side. He stumbled, but kept fighting. Inside her quarters, Yuna heard the battle. She tried to open her door, but it was sealed from outside. She could hear Sunwoo shouting, hear the sounds of metal against metal, hear people dying. "Sunwoo!" she screamed, pounding on the door. Lieutenant Chonari was in the communications room when the attack began. She heard the alarms and saw Morth-Ki warriors flooding the corridor. Without thinking, she dove into a maintenance shaft and crawled through the narrow space until she found a hidden junction. From there, she could access the station's communication network, her hands shaking. She began to record everything. Sunwoo killed 5 warriors before they brought him down. He was bleeding from a dozen wounds, barely able to stand. But when they broke down Yunaz's door, he threw himself in front of her one last time. The blade meant for Yuna went through his heart instead. "Run," he whispered, blood pouring from his lips. "Please." But there was nowhere to run. Yuna held her dying friend in her arms. "I'm sorry," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry." The warriors dragged her away. They took her to the central plaza of Velthar Prime. It's the same place where she had spoken of peace just 2 days ago. Now it was empty except for High Arbiter Drelvok and his soldiers. Cameras floated around them, broadcasting to every corner of the galaxy. Drelvok stood before her with a smile on his stone face. "Citizens of the consortium," he announced, "what you see before you is a human, a member of a violent and primitive species that sought to infiltrate our great alliance. They came with weapons hidden in their ship. They came with plans for conquest. We discovered their plot and stopped them. Now you will see what we do to threats." Yuna looked at the cameras. She knew she was going to die. She knew there was nothing she could do, but she could still speak. "That's a lie," she said, her voice surprisingly steady. "We came in peace. We brought no weapons. We wanted only friendship." Drelvok struck her across the face. "Silence." Yuna spat blood and looked up at him. "History will remember this. History will remember what you did here." "History is written by the victors," Drelvok replied. "And we have already won." He raised his blade. From her hiding place, Lieutenant Nari watched through the camera feeds. She was crying silently, her whole body trembling. But she kept the recording going. She kept transmitting to the Horizon's promise, which in turn transmitted to the Ironclad, which in turn transmitted to Earth. Yuna looked into the cameras one last time. She thought of her mother, of her home, of the blue sky she would never see again. She thought of humanity, of all the people she had hoped to help. "We came in peace," she said softly. "Remember that." Blade fell across the galaxy. Billions watched in horror as Ambassador Kong Yuna died. On the ironclad Admiral Park, Tai Ho saw it happen. He gripped the armrest of his chair so hard that the metal bent under his fingers. Commander Ji-hoon was cursing. Dr. Han Minji collapsed, sobbing. On Earth, it was morning. People were going to work, taking their children to school, living their ordinary lives. Then the broadcast reached them. Every screen, every phone, every display showed the same thing. Their ambassador, their daughter, murdered in cold blood by creatures who called themselves civilized. For a long moment, the entire planet went silent. 8 billion humans, all of them watching the same image. Then, slowly, the silence changed. It became something heavy, something dangerous. Humanity did not scream. Humanity did not cry. Not yet. Humanity was processing what it had just seen. And when it was done, when the shock faded and the reality sank in, something would happen that the galaxy had never seen before. Something the Morthiki could not even imagine. Lieutenant Nari was eventually found and captured. But her transmission had already been completed. The truth was out. And even if Drelvok controlled the consortium's official story, Earth had the real footage. Earth had seen everything, and Earth would never, ever forget. For 3 days, Earth was silent. No official statements came from the United Earth Coalition. No angry speeches. No demands for justice. Just silence. The galaxy watched and waited. Some thought humanity was in shock. Others thought they were scared. A few thought they had simply given up. The Morthi were pleased. High Arbiter Drelvok told the consortium that the humans had learned their place. He said their violent species had finally understood that they were nothing compared to the great civilizations of the galaxy. He was wrong. On the 4th day, Supreme Commander Ohinwu stood in the central broadcast chamber on Earth. He was 60 years old. With white hair and a face carved from stone, he had led Earth's military for 20 years. He had never lost a battle. He had never started a war. Today, he would start the first and only total war in human history. Every screen on Earth displayed his face. Every colony, every station, every ship received his signal. But he and Wu did something unusual. He broadcast on open frequencies. Every species in the galaxy could hear him if they chose to listen, and they chose to listen. People of Earth, Haiyan Wu began, his voice low and steady. People of the solar system. People of our distant colonies, you have seen what happened on Velthar Prime. You have seen our ambassador murdered. You have seen Captain Beak, Sun Wu, and 10 other brave souls slaughtered while trying to protect her. You have seen High Arbiter Drelvok lie to the galaxy, calling us savages while his hands dripped with innocent blood. He paused. When he spoke again, his voice was harder. You killed our daughter. You murdered peace itself. You thought us weak because we extended our hand in friendship. You thought us harmless because we chose words over weapons. He leaned forward, his eyes burning. Now you will learn why humanity has never been conquered. Not by ice ages. Not by plagues. Not by our own wars. Not by nature. Not by ourselves. Not by gods. And certainly not by you. On Luna, the great shipyards roared to life. For decades they had been quiet. Earth had focused on exploration, on science, on building a peaceful future. But hidden in the deepest vaults of Luna were designs that had never been forgotten. Ships built for war. Weapons designed for species that might one day threaten humanity. Master engineer. Quan Jae-wan had spent 30 years preparing for this day. He had hoped it would never come. Now, he was glad he had never stopped working. Open the vaults, he ordered. All of them. Every prototype, every design, every weapon we shelved because we thought we would never need them. Build them. Build them all. On Mars, Fleet Admiral Shindoyan gathered his commanders. He was a tall man with sharp eyes and hands that never trembled. He had trained for war his entire life, but had never fought one. Now he would lead humanity's first armada into the stars. How many ships do we have? He asked. 600 combat ready, his aide replied. Another 200 can be finished within a month. Doyen nodded. The Morthiki have 12,000. Yes, sir. Doyan smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Then we will have to be creative. Minister Chen Yunji, head of the Coalition Council, called an emergency vote. The question was simple. Peace or war? The vote was unanimous. War Earth sent its formal declaration to the consortium. It was short and direct. Galactic. To the Galactic Consortium, you harbored murderers. You watched as our people were butchered on sacred ground. You did nothing. We do not seek membership in your alliance. We do not seek friendship. We seek justice. Surrender High Arbiter Drelvok and all those responsible for the massacre on Velthor Prime. Refuse. Face the consequences. This is not a request. This is not a negotiation. This is your only warning. The Consortium received the message with disbelief. Some species were afraid. They had seen the footage from Velthor Prime. They knew the truth. They knew Drelvok had committed murder. But the Morthiki were powerful, and fear kept them silent. Drelvok himself laughed when he read the declaration. He summoned his admirals and showed them the message. The humans threaten us, he said. They have 600 ships. We have 12,000. They are children playing at war. We will crush them in weeks, his admirals agreed. Humanity was young and small. The Mortheki had ruled the stars for millennia. This war would be easy. They were wrong. On Earth, something was happening that the Mortheki could not understand. Humanity was waking up. Not just the soldiers, everyone. Factories that made toys began making ammunition. Shipyards that built passenger vessels began building warships. Scientists who studied medicine began studying weapons. Teachers, farmers, artists, workers, everyone contributed. Everyone wanted to help, because this was not just a war. This was personal. Every human had seen Yuna's final words. Every human had watched her die. She had become more than an ambassador. She had become a symbol, martyr. A reason to fight? We came in peace, she had said. Remember that? And humanity remembered. They remembered that they had extended their hand in friendship and had it cut off. They remembered that they had trusted and been betrayed. They remembered that the galaxy had looked at them and seen only prey. Now the galaxy would learn. What happened when you woke the Predator? Admiral Park. Taiho stood on the bridge of the Ironclad as the first expeditionary armada assembled around him. 400 warships, the largest fleet humanity had ever created. More were coming every day. Commander Yuji Hone approached him. Admiral, we have confirmed that Lieutenant Chonari is still alive. She is being held on Velthor Prime. Taiho's jaw tightened. Then we will get her back. And the Morthki. Taiho looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, Drelvok was celebrating his victory. He thought he had destroyed humanity's spirit. He thought he had one. The Mortheki will learn, Taiho said quietly, that there are some species you should never wake up. Some fires you should never light. Some enemies you should never make. He turned to his crew. Set course for Mortheki space. We have a war to win. The engines roared. The ships moved forward. And across the galaxy, species watched in amazement as humanity marched toward a force 20 times their size. Some called it madness. Some called it bravery. Some called it suicide. But on every human face, in every human heart, there was only one thought. Justice. Justice for Yuna. Justice for Sunwoo. Justice for every dream of peace that had died on Velthor Prime. And if justice required them to burn the galaxy down, so be it. The first battle happened in the Kethros Nebula. The Mortheki sent 800 warships to crush the human fleet. They expected an easy victory. Admiral Shin Do-yun had only 200 ships. The math was simple. The Mortheki would win. But humans had never been good at simple math. Do-yun led his fleet into the nebula. A massive cloud of gas and radiation that stretched across 3 star systems. Sensors did not work well inside it. Communications were difficult. The Mortheki admirals saw this as a trap and smiled. The humans were cornering themselves. They chased the human fleet deep into the nebula, and then they discovered what humans could do. When they were angry, the radiation in the nebula blinded the Mortheki sensors. They could barely see their own ships, let alone the enemy. But Do-yun had spent weeks studying this place. His ships had been modified to navigate by the radiation itself, using it like a map instead of an obstacle. The Mortheki fleet scattered, confused, and then the humans attacked. They came from every direction at once. Small, fast ships darted through the gas clouds, striking and vanishing. Larger cruisers fired from hidden positions, then moved before the enemy could return fire. And leading them all was Doyon's flagship, the Unyielding Fury. The Mortheki had never faced anything like this. Their commanders shouted orders that their captains could not hear. Their ships fired at shadows, and one by one, they died. But the true nightmare came when the humans unveiled their secret weapon. The Null Lance was Master Engineer Quan Jaewon's masterpiece. It was a beam of focused energy that passed through shields like they did not exist. No species in the galaxy had ever created anything like it. The Mortheki shields, which had protected them for thousands of years, were suddenly useless. The first Mortheki dreadnought hit by a Null Lance simply exploded. The second broke in half. By the time the third was destroyed, the remaining Mortheki ships were trying to flee. Most of them did not escape. When the battle ended, 600 Mortheki ships were destroyed or captured. The humans lost 40. Across the galaxy, species watched in disbelief. The Great Mortheki, the oldest and most powerful civilization in the consortium, had been humiliated by a species that had been in space for only 3 centuries. High Arbiter, Drelvok, received the news in his palace on Morthos Prime. He destroyed the messenger who brought it. Then he ordered every available ship to the front lines. This time, there would be no mistakes, but it was already too late. The human strategy was not just about winning battles. It was about breaking the enemy's will to fight. Intelligence Director Seo Tayson understood this perfectly. He began broadcasting to Mortheki space. Every communication channel, every display screen, every device that could receive a signal was flooded with the same images. Ambassador Kong Eunice, final moments. Her last words. Her face peaceful even in death. And then came the other images. Human history. Wars fought and survived. Plagues overcome. Disasters conquered. Cities destroyed and rebuilt. Again and again, century after century, the same message repeated. Humans fall. Humans rise. Humans never stop. The psychological effect was devastating. Mortheki soldiers began to hesitate. They looked at their human enemies and saw something they had never seen before. A species that simply refused to give up. Colonel Moon Sung-ho led the Ghost Marines, humanity's elite soldiers. They specialized in boarding actions, fighting inside enemy ships, taking them over, turning the enemy's weapons against them. Sung-ho was a quiet man who rarely smiled. He had lost his younger brother in an accident years ago and had never fully recovered. When he saw Ambassador Yuna's death, something inside him changed. He found a new purpose. His Marines attacked Mortheki ships that others thought impossible to capture. They fought through corridors filled with enemies, took bridge after bridge, and left nothing but silence behind them. Within months, the Ghost Marines had captured more than 50 enemy vessels. Pilot. Lieutenant Yoon Hana flew an interceptor. She had modified herself. She painted a single white flower on its nose in honor of Yuna. Then she flew into battle after battle, destroying enemy fighters with precision that seemed almost supernatural. By the end of the war, she had personally destroyed over 200 enemy craft. The Mortheki called her the Reaper. Her pilots feared her more than entire human squadrons. As the months passed, the tide turned completely. Consortium species that had once supported the Mortheki began to withdraw. Some offered intelligence to the humans. Others simply stepped aside, refusing to fight a war they knew was wrong. The truth about Velthor Prime had spread despite Drelvok's attempts to suppress it. Everyone knew now that the humans had come in peace. Everyone knew that they had been betrayed. And everyone understood that human vengeance was not random violence. It was targeted, precise, and terrifyingly effective. The Mortheki fought desperately, but they were losing on every front. Their fleets were shattered. Their colonies were blockaded. Their economy was collapsing. And still the humans kept coming. Admiral Park Tae-ho led a special mission to Velthor Prime. He broke through the Mortheki defense fleet and landed a team on the station. Their objective was simple: rescue Lieutenant Cho Nari. Nari had been held prisoner for 8 months. She had been tortured for information she did not have, but she had never broken. When the Ghost Marines found her cell and opened the door, she looked up with tired eyes. "Took you long enough," she said. Swangho almost smiled. "We had some things to take care of first." They carried her out of that prison and brought her home. She was the only survivor of the original diplomatic mission, and she became a symbol of hope, just as Yuna had become a symbol of sacrifice. With Nari safe, the humans turned their full attention to the final target, Morthos Prime, the Morthki homeworld, the seat of their civilization for 10,000 years, the place where High Arbiter Drelvok had planned the murder of innocents. The humans were coming, and nothing in the galaxy could stop them. Mort, whose Prime hung in space like a jewel. The Mortheki homeworld was beautiful, covered in crystal cities and silver forests that had grown for millions of years. It was the heart of their civilization, the source of their pride, the home of their people, and it was surrounded by the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. Admiral Park Taiho stood on the bridge of the ironclad, looking at the planet below. 350 human warships floated around him. Facing them were 2,000 Mortheki vessels, the last of their great armada. It was still a significant force, nothing like what they had started with. 18 months of war had reduced the mighty Mortheki fleet to a fraction of its former strength. 18 months of battles, of defeats, of watching their empire crumble piece by piece. And now they made their final stand at their own doorstep. Taiho remembered the day Yuna had died. He remembered watching helplessly from the edge of the system, unable to save her. He had carried that weight for 18 months. Today, finally, he would set it down. "Open a channel to the Mortheki fleet," he ordered. His communications officer complied. Taiho's voice was broadcast to every ship in the system. "Mortheki forces, this is Admiral Park Taiho of the United Earth Coalition. You are surrounded. Your reinforcements have been destroyed. Your allies have abandoned you. You cannot win this battle. I offer you one chance. Surrender High Arbiter Drelvok and all others responsible for the massacre at Velthor Prime. Do this. Your people will live. Your world will be spared. Refuse, and we will be forced to do what must be done." For a long moment, there was silence. Then a response came from the Mortheki flagship. It was not Drelvok. It was one of his admirals. "We will never surrender our arbiter to human animals. You may have won battles, but you will never defeat us completely. The Mortheki are eternal." Taiho closed his eyes briefly. He had hoped it would not come to this, but hope had died with Yuna. "Very well," he said. "All ships begin the attack." The Battle of Morthos Prime lasted 9 hours. It was brutal. The Mortheki fought with the desperation of a species defending their home. They threw everything they had at the human fleet. Ships collided in the darkness of space. Wreckage filled the void between stars. Thousands died on both sides. But in the end, the result was never in doubt. Human tactics, forged in 18 months of constant warfare, proved unstoppable. The No Lances tore through Mortheki shields. The Ghost Marines boarded and captured enemy vessels. Pilot Yun Hanna flew through the chaos, leaving destruction in her wake. One by one, the Mortheki ships fell. Their admiral died when his flagship was destroyed. Their fleet scattered, broken beyond repair, and through it all. Supreme Commander Ohinwu broadcast a message to the Mortheki population below. "People of Morthos Prime, we do not come to destroy you. We do not come to enslave you. We come to judge those who murdered innocent people in cold blood. Surrender the guilty, and your civilization will continue. Your children will have a future. We are not monsters, despite what your leaders have told you. We are simply humans, and humans believe in justice." On the surface, the Mortheki people listened. They had seen the war. They had watched their sons and daughters die in battle after battle, and they knew deep in their hearts that their leaders had brought this upon them. When the riots began, High Arbiter Drelvok knew his time was over. He tried to flee. He took a small ship and attempted to slip past the human blockade. Colonel Moon Soon Ho was waiting for him. The Ghost Marines intercepted Drelvok's ship within minutes. They boarded it, disabled his guards, and dragged the ancient Mortheki from his hiding place. He was still wearing his ceremonial robes, still carrying himself with the pride of 1,000 generations. Shung-Ho looked at him with cold eyes. "High Arbiter Drelvok, you are under arrest for crimes against peace and the murder of Ambassador Kong Yuna and her delegation." Drelvok tried to speak, to threaten, to bargain. Shung-Ho did not listen. He simply put restraints on the old creature's wrists and took him away. The trial was held on a news station. It's built near where Velthor Prime still orbited. It was broadcast across the galaxy. Representatives from every species watched as Drelvok was brought before a tribunal of judges from 12 different worlds, including Earth. The evidence was overwhelming. Recordings, communications, testimony from captured Morthki soldiers. The whole galaxy saw the truth. Drelvok had ordered the assassination. He had planned every detail. He had murdered innocents to protect his own power. The most powerful moment came when Kong Su-jin, Yuna's elderly mother, was allowed to speak. She was a small woman with white hair and gentle eyes. She looked at Drelvok without hatred, without anger, just sadness. "My daughter believed in peace," she said quietly. "She believed that all beings, no matter how different, could find common ground. She died for that belief. I do not wish for your death, Arbiter. Death would be too easy. I wish for you to live. To live with what you have done? To watch the galaxy move forward while you remain trapped in your guilt." Drelvok said nothing. For the first time in his long life, he had no words. The tribunal found him guilty. He was sentenced to imprisonment on a barren moon, alone, except for his keepers, until natural death claimed him. He would live for centuries more. He would spend every one of those years in silence, with only his memories for company. The war was over. In its aftermath, the consortium dissolved. It had failed completely to survive. In its place, the Galactic Accord was born. A new alliance founded on different principles: transparency, accountability, justice. Humanity was not just a member. Humanity was a founder. On the first anniversary of Yuna's death, a memorial was built at Velthor Prime. Her statue stood in the central plaza, the same place where she had died. She was shown holding out her hand, palm up, offering peace. Admiral Park Taiho visited the memorial alone. He was older now, his hair completely white, his face lined with weariness. He had won the war, but victory felt hollow. He placed a single white flower at the base of the statue. It was Yuna's favorite flower, he had learned. A simple thing from a simple garden back on Earth. "We came in peace," he said softly, echoing her final words. "You taught us war. We pray we never forget how to choose the former." He looked up at her face. "Frozen forever in stone. We pray the galaxy never forgets we are capable of the latter." 300 years later, the Galactic Accord still stood. No species had broken its laws. In every academy, on every world, students learned about the Morthki War. They learned about Ambassador Kong Yuna, who died believing in peace. And they learned about humanity's species that proved mercy and wrath could live in the same heart, a species. That showed the galaxy what happened when you mistake kindness for weakness. The stars were quiet now. But in that quiet, in every corner of the galaxy, there was a lesson that would never be forgotten. Humanity remembers. Humanity always remembers, and humanity never stops.